right here. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I've categorized all the patches into the priorities. So the most important piece that is missing is all the RPC compatibility layer. So this was started by Tang in Liberty. It wasn't merged. Only the text was merged, not the code. And code never was finished. Right now, what I did, I took the node approach that they merged in Mitaka. And these are the two patches here at 0. And Tang looked into them and abandoned his own approach. So we can provide. So these two will make sure that the RPC version is pinned to a lowest running version among all of the deployment. So that way, we always downgrade the messages and the objects to the version that all of the services will understand. And this basically means that with these two patches applied, everything is running on a mixed deployment when we have services running in Liberty and Mitaka versions, and everything is fine. So these are these patches on the top. The feeds me. Okay, so
not needed.
So in this approach, the version pin is reloaded only on service restart. So that's bad. But another piece that I want to implement, and this is also derived from Nova approach, is to reset the version pins also when we send a SIG hub signal to the service. So that way we will need to restart the service. And also, it's not needed to release all the version pins at once. You may do it slowly across the deployment because right now the managers and the RPC clients are done in a way that the manager can handle old and new messages with the compatibility. So there's not a problem if new manager receives an older message. It can handle it. And so with these two patches, I was able to run tempest tests on mixed deployment. It was fine. Okay.
Are there any feedback on those patches of any issues that we need clarification on? Or I haven't actually looked at the latest version of the patches. Or is it they just need to be reviewed? And
yeah, they just need to be reviewed. I should remove the work in progress tag here because I believe that they are fine. So I should probably update also the tank spec from Liberty to indicate that this is a different approach.
Yeah, that'd be good if we could get it updated.
Okay. So that's the two. Okay. So there's the next the P1 priority. So that's a very simple patch that adds versions to the RPC calls because some of them, for example, snapshot calls are missing. So we don't actually know where to pin to the RPC version because when the version is none, it's like it's 1.0. So that's bad, but that's very simple patch. And then we have this request spec and filter properties object. So this so right now request spec and filter properties are kicked blob, and that's completely unversionable, and it's very hard to make backward compatible changes inside them. these 4 patches are converting these objects, these diffs into objects in all of the calls. We will probably everything will work fine even without them. But we've run into at least in series at least 2 situations when they would be very handy to make changes backward compatible. So I would say that if we can merge P0 and P1, then we can have a tech preview solution, and with P2 we can have an experimental feature. We don't have testing for rolling upgrades yet, so I wouldn't ever call it production ready. But that's my opinion on this. So it's M3, so I don't think looking below P2 is going to give us anything. These patches we can definitely do without these patches below P2. P3, yeah, P3 and below.
The thing with that part, I couldn't see what the benefits were. They don't actually make anything better, just different. They don't reduce the number of database accesses. They don't actually. We send more over the wire, but we don't gain anything from it. Actually,
yeah, they would, I think, reduce the database accesses. And in the series, definitely we haven't run into a situation when the fact that we are sending objects through RPC instead of IDs would be useful. We may in the future. I can't think quickly of an example.
I'd rather hold off on those and get what we already do with solid and tertiary, rather than running spokes with those P3 ones. I'd rather drop those P3 ones, get their solid for a release.
Yeah,
let
yeah.
people actually do that.
For the Mitaka, that's totally fine.
Would I can't be both abandoned all those P3s? Because I think they're actively harmful at this point. We can have people looking at them. Like, if any of those merge, I think they make things worse, not better.
I don't think it's worse.
It's
a little complicated because such patches modifying the RPC version are conflicting with other patches modifying the RPC version, so that makes it harder to merge the other ones. I'm not sure if you should abandon them. Maybe just minus 2 on them would be.
Well, it's the same thing. Either way, it's not. You know you'll abandon them. An abandon is a minus 2 then anybody can take off.
But also take off the minus 2.
No, if I can minus 2 it, I have to take minus 2 off.
Ah, okay, right.
An abandon, you've got an abandon in next time, so next time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're informally saying this time sometimes, oh, we're going to do this one as experimental. And we've had kind of an agreement that we're going to put in the experimental. I didn't hear anybody object. I think it's a good idea that we follow up on the microversions with experimental support.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the API, so microversions are going to help us.
No. It's the ability to do experimental stuff can build off of the microversions attached. So it may not
Right, but they won't gate this, is what you're saying. This doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no way to.
No, it doesn't gate it. But one thing it just occurred to me is that it's the first time I've been to one of these sessions where we're saying that. And when I looked at the review, if I knew if it merged, it was going to be merged just experimental, or it was going to be merged just regular.
Well, the truth is, that's you're just saying it's experimental. It really isn't experimental in the sense that there's no experimental required to make it function or not function.
Right.
So when you say it's experimental,
I say
what does it mean? I mean, what?
Yeah, so I am not able to test all the calls, and our tempest testing coverage isn't that good. We don't test, for example, manage existing yet. So yes, I can run tempest multiple times to try to find any problems with these patches, but still not all of the RPC calls are covered by that.
So I guess a couple things. One is, does that mean
test manually, but we don't have a CI for that. so I can miss any regression.
So does it mean practically that we wouldn't document that this is something people should do, or rolling upgrades shouldn't be announced as working? I mean, what does it mean to merge the code?
Yeah.
But think of it as experimental. Is it?
We merge it to say, get testing before we got the Mitaka release.
You're indicating you want something time.
Oh, maybe we can just say check it out. If you don't find any problems on your environment, then go on and do an upgrade using these features. If not, file back and I'll use it now.
By experimental, we increase test. Well,
Please test. Reviewers, please test before merging the code.
but also, even after that, we beat on this hard and get bugs on it.
So I know every of the reviewers have the access to the big environments, live environments. So a lot of problems may be disclosed on the big environment.
I've got one question about the first zero patch. I'm trying to take that on all of it, forgotten how all this works. But you've got the thing with the Liberty version.
Yes. So the Liberty, this is funny because in Liberty we've merged the database migration, adding the columns to the service tables. So every service, which means every manager, so RPC server, reports what version it can. I mean, in Liberty it was the reporting, but we have this column. Now in Mitaka we want to add the reporting, and when the column is null, then it means that the service in Liberty is in Liberty version, and we should pin to the Liberty version, which we know.
So the only one that will be hard coded is Liberty.
That's right. No more.
Can you make that very clear in the commit message, please? I didn't get that.
Yeah, I think I have on the version I have the fix me comment that says you can remove this after Mitaka. So, anyone have a comments? Do you want me to go through these patches, these two most important ones with the compatibility?
I would do, because I'm not sure I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important.
I'm not sure how can we do that. So we can click it. Okay, this one is the simplest one. Can you please scroll it down the code? Yeah, guys. Okay, it's very simple. So the changes in the service object, the second file here, are just adding the already existing database columns to the object. That's very simple. Nothing interesting in there. Then I think, oh yeah, the service file. I can go there. Okay, so here's the reporting piece. So when service is created, or we are starting the service and it finds its own record in the DB, it will update the objects version and the RPC API version it can serve. Right? This is also kind of easy. All of the managers have the RPC API version property, so that's reported. And with objects, it's more complicated because we have only one field in the DB to describe all of the version of the objects. So we need to have a single string that describes all of the versions of the objects that this service can understand. So that's why I've made changes in the object space. You can. Let's show you this. This is the right direction. Now that's just the text. So the first file. It's not the prettiest solution you can imagine. So I've created a dictionary-like object that that stores the object's versions for a given state. So we start to version every change in the objects. Every version bump of an object is a new, let's say, historic version. That's not so clear, right? Or
I get it now.
oh, okay.
I do get it.
So this is just a simple helper class.
So then for every release, we have to not only version those, but come in and edit this
No,
and add
it's not for every release. Every time you pop an object with it, in the same patch, you add things to this, I think.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. You can see there's on the bottom of the patch 91st line. There's object version add, and that's the starting point is the liberty. This dict on the top of the screen, and then we are adding 1.0, which means which bumps the versions, the object versions to the current versions, right?
It's similar to what we do at RPC, but it had a nice one.
Yeah, we can think of doing that per one release, so merging such patches only once per release. But that would block doing continuous upgrades from trunk. I know.
I definitely want to be able to.
I know.
Breaking that would
Yeah,
be-
that would be bad.
So this complicates things a little. There's this test on the end of the on the last file in the review is actually enforcing that if you bump an object version, then you need to also bump this general version. So no, yeah, Lisa is right. I need to fix this code here.
Anytime you bump any of the object's volume or GG
Yes.
snapshot, then the object version will bump as
Yes,
well.
that's right. Yeah, this interpret is more merge conflicts, unfortunately, but that's the price. That's the trade-off. Okay.
So this test will actually tell you if you don't bump it.
Yes, and we tell you which objects which objects change and what you need to put into the. So this is very similar to our tests under above it.
I might have a comment on just to make sure it's clear.
Oh yeah.
Rather than that, I like it.
Okay, so that was probably the simpler patch. Let's go through the next one. And there's a lot of changes, but most of them are that moving code around. So let's start with the cinder/rpc file, maybe the file with the comments. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so all of our RPC client files, this RPC API files, have the shared code. So I created a class for all of them with this code. And also I've added automatical detection of the lowest running version among all of the deployments. These objects, let's look just a little above the comments. So this version cap equals gets the lowest minimum version of a service binary among all of the deployment, and it will pin the RPC version to that version. So all the messages going out of the RPC client will get downgraded to the lowest running version, right? Yeah, that's it. Similar thing goes with the objects and the method roll. Okay, so if you can get back to the list. So the RPC version capping is done mostly by Oslo messaging. We just need to have this compatibility schemes in the RPC API classes. You've probably seen some of them. while reviewing. Another change, the bigger one, is in, I think again it's in object space. Right, it's here. Yeah, so you can see in this patch how I've changed the version of service objects. So I needed to bump the version with this object versions.add. Yeah, that's very simple. So it takes the last version, updates with the new versions of this service objects, and creates a new one. Okay, but I needed also to implement a special object serializer. So this one, when it's created, it gets the version cap, the object version cap, and on a serialization, it will downgrade the object. Version objects have this method object. Okay, here I'm using the object to primitive. Anyway, the version needs to backward the object too. But it may also happen that that a manager will receive an older version of object, so older than it expects. So because version object doesn't have the forward port method, so instead of that, we are simply getting the object again from the database to get the newest version with all the properties we are expecting that will be there. And if that doesn't work, well, basically it returns the object to this version. It doesn't break anything on the version object side, just the manager would need to be able to work with the older object. For example, it's not the database-based object, like it's a request spec. If it gets older request spec, then it needs to be able to work with it. That's
We're getting it into the database. It's fragile because if the fields aren't filled in the database, because it's an old, it came from in the database, an old thing. That whole flipping out the database thing is filled with fragile. It seems better to say the manager just must be able to handle X-1 version of object.
Yeah. So yes.
And don't do any kind of magic to do that explicitly the manager rather than doing this, running through the database to upgrade it.
So with all the changes, this effort to get our schema changes to be able to be run online, there's also an assumption that sometimes if the object was created or the database role was created by an older instance of the service, then you can expect that some fields will not be let's say, there will be nothing. Yeah. Yeah, I understand the problem.
So here is the implicit turn on thing in producing. And before that's fragile, and as manager, a lot of that is done in manager rather than hitting the object layer. So that the manager during the review, he can spot that the manager needs to split some code to handle it where field S, which didn't exist in the old volume object, might be null.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were talking about something else. That makes sense.
Well, I'd rather it was explicit in the manager each time than hidden in the object layer.
So if you can comment on that, and we can start the discussion there. Yeah, that would make sense. Probably, maybe it would be even better if manager can check the object version and act on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can expect that there would be nothing in the database where he expects it would be.
So this file is
Object-based.
Object-based, single object serializer there. Okay, so that's simply the heavy lifting done there. Rest of the changes are the applying this base RPC client class to all of our RPC APIs and the tests. That's it. Yeah. And this makes running upgrade possible.
So it
But there's this scalable backups thing.
sounds like you not only need reviews, you'd like some system testing on this.
Definitely. So I would love to have grenade CI on running partial grenade. Like Nova is having a 2-node grenade with 1 node running the latest master, and it's the controller node, and the second node running previous version, and it's the compute node. And they are testing the communication between these two. But we have more services. So technically, we should test. We should do some kind of test on an old version, then upgrade just an API and test it. Upgrade scheduler, test it. Upgrade volume, test it. That's a lot of stuff. Yes. So it's hard to test on Grenade. I've posted a question to the mailing list. I was hoping some of the Grenade magicians will help me how to get that right, but unfortunately no one answered. But yeah, definitely we should test it. Yeah, on the CI. Maybe some kind of simpler solution. Maybe not test everything at the first time, but we should have a Grenade CI for that. Right. So then the order of upgrades. So right now there isn't probably any. I don't think there's an order constraint for this stuff, but with scalable backups things, it will, because scalable backups explicitly requires the newer version of Cinder volume service. So there would be a constraint that Cinder volumes, all of the Cinder volumes, are upgraded before the Cinder backups are.
So my concern there is, what is the behavior if you get the upgrade order wrong? If the backups or restores or whatever go into error, but nothing actually breaks, that's fine. If things get wegged or data gets corrupted, that's not fine.
So backups will fail, but silently.
Right. Silently, not good.
Yes. I mean, silently, backups will get into error state, but no feedback to the user from an API level.
Going to memory is not a disaster. So I'm actually okay with it. I think they're completely true.
Okay, so that is what we have done. I think if we can harden it to have until feedback to the user. So API would call the backup service, and now the backup service will fail just simply on sending a message because it wants to talk with the newer Cinder volume, but it is tapped to a higher version. Sorry, to a lower version, so it cannot send this message. So it will fail. So, but we know that only on the Cinder backup level, not on the API level.
As long as you stick the backup in a cleanly, I'm happy.
Okay, that's
it would be nice to do better, but the minimum is going to break the system. You don't want data.
So we would need to add to the volume API to add the compatibility string that actually explodes, and that would make it.
I don't mind ordering it straight. If you want to completely smooth the rolling upgrade, you must probably order. Like I'm saying, if you don't want to order in bulk, or if you're supposed to go in bulk, but the results aren't done. It's a cloud. If your backup fails, you'll have to try again later.
So wouldn't it be possible with this versioning in a separate package, which is obviously more, to ensure that if you upgrade out of order, it doesn't work, or there's all this information about which object versions exist for each individual service is in there. So shouldn't it be possible to say you've upgraded your backup service, but not your volume service, so this failed? Just as a technical thing. I'm not saying please do this now, but
technically we can add it to the Cinder API. But before any backup call, it will get the versions from the database and check out if we have. But that's a lot of additional.
Well, or you have to do a SIG hub to do the rolling upgrade. So maybe at that time when you're doing the rolling upgrade, you detect that you've upgraded.
Oh yeah, we can cache that.
You detect that you've upgraded, so you should be able to at that time say you just upgraded, but you upgraded the wrong thing out of order. Or I'm just thinking about since all this information is there about all these objects and their versions. If you upgrade them out of order, you should be able to detect that at some point. Hopefully not at every API call, but maybe at the moment of upgrade, which is if it takes a SIG hub.
Yeah.
You know, then you can check it and say, well, wait a second, you can't do this because you just upgraded backup, and I can see that you didn't upgrade volume.
That makes sense.
Just as something to do someday by somebody. Just check it to make sure it's feasible.
Yeah, it should.
I don't like relying on the user to do the right thing and saying it's okay to go into error state and not corrupt it when we can do it in code someday.
Well, there might be one that you don't
Well, obviously, we don't want the user to do bad things.
Okay. So, just a quick explanation why this alternative approach by Tang is abandoned. So Duncan and Tang worked on a spec for that. Their solution would work, of course, but meanwhile, Nova guys merged this approach, and it seems simpler. Just simpler. It is also fine to have it consistent with Nova. So when someone knows how to upgrade Nova, we should be also familiar with the Cinder procedure with some constraints, of course, but still. Yeah. So, do you want me to explain how this was supposed to work?
I don't know if we need that if it's abandoned.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're trying to collect all this stuff that is explicitly hard-coded. You try to collect it and do it all for you, basically, after someone. It has certain elegance, but we've got a test to tell you screwed up. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
Nice work.
Anyone look for this?
Yeah, Kurt mentioned that earlier. Should we get people to sign up? Be the reviewers on this stuff.
That might be
through. Does that help?
good thing for Mitaka and tree. Any questions?
Yeah, I guess the same question Mikhail asked was, well, who's going to review this? Yeah, well, I'll review it, but we didn't. Yeah, our +1s don't add up to a +2.
Yeah, they help.
Yeah, they do help.
All right. Well,
I'll review it. It's up to
Maybe just one more thing. So right now, this is always calling the DB to get the services to determine the lowest running version. So I wonder if that shouldn't be controlled by a config flag. That after an upgrade, the administrator can simply flip the flag and save some DB calls before sending a message. Because some of the services are creating the RPC API Oh, okay, but I did caching in there. So that's actually just one call per service, per service instance. So that's not a problem. Not a big problem. Just a single call to the DB at the service start.
Would it make sense at all to get someone that's familiar with the RPC stuff in version objects in Nova to look at this stuff too?
Totally.
Or is it
Dan Smith would be the best person. Yeah.
maybe we can twist some arms? Or
He seems like he's already been helpful, so he probably would look at it. I don't. Those patches didn't seem huge, or
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I can message him.
yeah,
To get that.
you seem to have been in contact with him a lot. And he seemed to have been
He's helpful.
very helpful.
since it seems overly not overly, but complicated that I don't understand at this point. So I don't know how much use I would be to review this other than obvious stupid simple stuff. So someone that's more familiar with the whole mechanism itself would be a good gauge, I would think. Very
If it isn't clear how to add new stuff, we need to improve documentation, and that's the bit that I think is really missing here. Is just more in the commit message or developer docs or whatever. What you need to do when you now do a new RPC version, what you now need to do when you
Yes.
project version.
And the migrations now are more complicated. Yes, that should go to the dev rep. I can do that.
Yeah,
Update
absolutely.
the
Very
spec
clear.
And if those aren't clear to you, they aren't clear to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Because I'm going to have to review further stuff down the road,
Yeah.
and I'm going to need to know that these things need to be in there to say -1 or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work with updating the specification for RPC compatibility and doing some developer reference.
Okay, cool. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what if we're everything up there would be to a pretty much on the not like this, everything else I love.
Doesn't look terrible.
But they're P3, so just ignore them. Pretend like they don't.
Yeah. Right. That's it, not
Well,
Yeah, no need to waste time on the reviews for its entry is already late in the release. Okay.
So we want to set, we want to try and agree on what we want to get in for Mitaka. Like, I know Bill, you were saying you're not going to look at the trees, but personally, I'd rather get those merged rather than I'd rather get all of them. They're in flight, are in progress.
I've only abandoned them until.
Oh, well, really that.
It's literally abandoned them.
So John, the thing is that these patches, the P3 patches, all of them are backward compatible. As we in M release, we haven't yet hit any situation where this would be useful. It may be in the future, but right now we are fine without them. And if we merge them in Newton, that's not a problem. They are still working. Okay, the compatibility things that are inside these patches will need to stay through all of the Newton release. But then in something, they could be removed.
Right. Yeah. I just look at it as there's a ton of code out there that would just float around.
I would say that
you're keeping track of it, but
I'm never going to abandon those things with the same people things.
okay.
It's
Okay.
too much outshire. Like one time,
I'm fine with
and
that.
then you don't. And we want yeah.
I would say that if someone wants to review them, then it's better to maybe match the micro versions.
what's the theme of this new?
What's that?
We've got microversions.
I haven't added the new changes that we came up with yesterday. But Monday, I'll have.
Could we possibly, in the working session on Friday, are you going to be here? Maybe get this stuff tested and learned. I mean, why he's here, and you can ask questions, and I don't know. I'm not sure what the plan was for Friday, but the author's here, and Thanks. I don't know. This was one of the priority things of landing in Mitaka. Billy, all the cores aren't super comfortable with it, and it's like they're going to get back and get busy, and it's another slip.
Yeah, I would like to see it go on.
Sounds like a good thing for Friday. I won't be here.
Guessing you guys can't hear me, but we lost Kurt's connection again, so there's no sound from the Hangout.
So this is what
Right.
sent me that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, exactly.
I really, can we send her a selfie, please?
She's been stalking on my Twitter account too, making comments about that. Oh, that's why the video is so shaky.
Oh, yeah.
Should we send her a selfie? Should we do it? Because it'd be funny.
The selfie, you mean?
The selfie.
Well, kind of. Soon to be in touch. She sent me
She's stalking my Twitter account.
Something somebody else tweeted.
Either that or
Tweeted.
yeah.
Yeah, that was during the Nobel Prize.
Because earlier, a couple months ago, we were talking about the brick stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
My screen froze, I had a funny face, a screenshot, I put that on Dropbox. Didn't send it to anyone. I sent it,
You sent it to
I
me.
sent it to you. At night, I sent it
She said, well, I think that's bad. You should see the other pictures I have up.
Yeah.
The guy in the fucking restaurant.
Whatever.
You just got guys sending pictures of you everywhere.
I probably shouldn't send it that way.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not like that one.
So we've done to the Deborah. Yeah. Cool. Urging that way for you to write that. And I want to comment in about why that limits it. Coded version of that. Yeah. Because I don't want people should be coming along landing in the Kappa one and N1.
Yes. That's what
Comment that says mentions here for historical reasons. In the code, right above it. Other than that, yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm waiting for her to show up on my front doorstep being like,
yeah, but I understand it's
what do you do?
totally should be 100% specific. It's just for historical reasons. And in early
Here's the home record, what I do.
a lot of stuff that would go away in first
Cool. A lot of this is shrunk, which I really like. Like the amount of change you're actually making is relatively small now.
Yeah, try to keep it like that. So actually, a lot of this is taken directly from Nova and how they are doing. All the object stuff is not because they have backporting on the conductor that they did it in an easier way. But RPC communicated 100% Nova-like. So my next steps is documentation. Everything is patched up today, and
I want you to do these first on the big week.
oh,
I can't see a good reason not to do such tomorrow.
okay, I will try to fix them this evening. And also, third thing is to implement this CCAP signaling, reloading. Because right now, this is it's fairly easy, but I haven't shown this keys exactly. So it keeps track of the last the last version, of the last lowest version itself.
Yeah.
So that way, as this is a global variable, that way we are doing just one call like that, like this one,
Yeah.
per service service run, because of this. Yeah, if it's.
No, that makes sense.
And in the when handling the CCAP, what I will do is simply reset these two again to empty dictionary. Very simple. So most of that is really dance meets work, and his approach. Cool. Finally, it's really, we started in kilo. Okay. Yes, yes. So I was surprised when I was at the presentation Dan Smith was doing at the Legion Summit in Tokyo, and he said that once they had to backward change to Liberty to actually make rolling upgrades from Liberty to something possible. So that was completely. Yes, it's the same with Apache and their the fact that they are watching over rolling upgrades that much. Okay, so I guess that's it running. I do the documentation and the templates for the setup, and that should be it. Now, there's also this small patch that's actually on the bottom of all of these. That's just let's show. It doesn't specify the version, so what I did, I took the version the calls were changed, updated the proper version.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was needed in purpose API, and oh, even in scheduler to walk through. Oh, I think capabilities were sent in the version.
Yeah. It's just a couple spots that I think it takes some explanation and then
random zero and volume the snapshots. That's our fix to match the versions.
Grab it, yeah.
Oh, in the class connection, terminate connection. 1.0. It were there from the start. That's it. That's three patches. This one is lower priority.
Yeah, same
but
thing.
It actually
Don't know.
a dependency for
This one.
It doesn't work.
I thought I knew how it worked, but I was wrong.
Is the gate actually unplugged?
This one, I tried to remove it and it didn't work, so I put it back and now it does work.
Because there were like 32 hours of waiting. Oh, now it's only 3.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Even worse.
Oh,
Maybe we'll look at the agenda.
Oh, still fine.
Do it tomorrow, but maybe not. You know, at the end of the day, basically.
That was bad. Yeah.
34 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we got it.
Yeah. Let's suck it up.
I would also need to test to make sure we don't have any bugs in the methods we are not testing on Tempest, like type, migrate. We test probably all the backups. Okay. That wouldn't be hard to test. And then manage existing, unmanage existing. Manage existing, oh, consistency groups. I don't have a resource to test it. This solid fire actually supporting the system? Sorry?
No idea.
Yeah.
That's all your battery Okay, but I guess the testing can be also done on the release candidate. How long is the RC period?
Yeah, so I was thinking it wasn't like they were just like turn off or
Number redirected there, based off.
That's the M3. So there's
Final RC.
almost a month. Let's say I would have at least 2 weeks. That would be fine. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fine. Oh, that. I was.
Lots of people tried, but keeping everything up in the evening.
Yes. So even while I was working on the patches that modify the RPC API and object, I've missed at least one thing that we need to fix.
Abandoning all those P3s, I'm not happy because the amount of code change is more. Like,
so you will do that?
I've done it, done.
Oh, alright.
They're gone.
Great.
Yeah, they've gone out with you just as abandonment.
Yeah, I feel like I should.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to.
Okay, a link to the YouTube make that video.
If people want to complain, they come and complain about but they all back. A couple of them have got to. I'd rather not see that churn now. I think it's coming. There's one more thing that might break.
Yes.
And if something's broken, I want to narrow down what changed. This small business project.
We can definitely do that in it's already really late in the fact. Okay.
So I'm being talked about.
well, yeah.
My
No, I was just telling the story about how.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what's next?
To do that, Nova?
No, we're doing that to.
All right. That was easy.
Nap time.
Cinder without Nova. Try to bum you out. You'll be here tomorrow.
So what's
Well, why do we move it to tomorrow?
John had things that he wanted to get in place to be ready.
Are you going to start pulling that date? I Alice is one, our tomorrow.
Now I should read through the notes to see what I thought already. What I actually
go ahead and
talked about.
Oh, maybe scalable backup. Did we talk about that? The scalable backup issues enough?
I think so. So the Duncan gave -2 on that because he was concerned that this affects this.
Could cause the data corruption.
Yes, in case someone does the upgrade in a wrong order.
So that may be done.
You said you just put the -2 on to get the force discussion. You know, not use for the proposal.
That's the way we start discussing things now?
Yeah.
-2.
When I want to make sure, you know, it's a whole, put the brakes on. I mean, you put a comment in it, like, don't take this.
Can he remove the -2?
I don't think you can move it yet. That's a good question.
Let's make sure.
So anyway,
let's make sure he won't forget.
that was an answer to your question, Kurt.
Hey, Sean, I really need to talk to
It looks like
-2.
Cinder without Nova's first thing, and then solve replication.
Did you end up hearing back?
We have to wait. I think John was doing something with Cinder.
I haven't
But
checked
yeah,
my
we
emails
could
since you got here.
we could have agenda items tomorrow.
They did
Is there anything else?
Okay.
Are there any more concerns about it?
I think this is fine. This is a great patch. I figured it's.
No, I know you do, and I do, but we still need the +2 people.
Hey, there are +2.
Oh, yeah, great.
I run Sean.
That's right. So if we do,
Well, sure, it would be
Going
great
for the
if we
there,
were
but
in channel.
I can-
He doesn't want
Yeah,
to
we
be
should
some
prepare
comments
about
he has
this.
problems. We have been hammered by them. Yeah. I think our CI guys tried to install 4 or 5 times.
that's all we have all day.
People are very agreeable.
That's all we have
You
to
probably
do.
prepared more than you need.
Well, we actually don't work together.
So we'll wait for him.
You don't know each other at all, except
I've never met her.
except for
Yeah,
just
she's from a
coincidence.
totally different team, totally different division. She's based she's based in
Yes, yes, in Shanghai, I believe.
So we are another team from Poland. Maybe not totally connected, but other priorities.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's team building in
Let's discuss.
joint
Let's discuss.
Yes, so Kurt is working on another project related to
So what's Lisa's team do? You have a sense of your team on the other side of your table. You have people definitely does know this is
so our team
She
is
seems to be very interested in crypto as well as.
yes, so this is this emerged from the Carol Barrett from Intel is working on it was called Enterprise Working Group. Now it's called Product
Sure.
Working Group. And she's gathering the enterprise requirements for open.
Is Anthony on our
One of them was the hardening of the.
He could be on the
So
hangout for this.
Lisa started to work on that.
Makes sense. It's a good.
I mean, he's the one doing the work, even though I kind of directed him, and I'd like to get him.
The priorities are more involved. For example, the team Lisa is in is maintaining the CI for CI devices, the Intel CI on Nova. It's more administrative work. And my team, at least my manager's vision, is to drive some kind of features through all the community and through Intel.
I noticed that. No, I mean, I think Red Hat's doing that too a little bit, you know, where we have people in Nova and people in Red Hat's also a little bit like that, with people in Neutron and people in Alpha.
Oh yeah, that's
and so there's, you know, you actually know what's going on in the other projects.
Yes,
So I noticed that about your team.
Ah, okay, right. Yeah. But still, if you were to work on all of the projects, But in the beginning of project, management thought that it's totally fine for a single person to work on different projects, and it's not.
Yeah.
You need to focus on one.
Well, just because of the amount of work.
Yes, but I can't imagine that I can get.
No, but you're able to get cut resources from Nova on version vectors, for example.
Yeah, but Nova is very similar to Cinder. That's an easy code. That's an easy switch. But working on Neutron or Swift, well, Swift is totally different.
Well, our team, the team of Vorka, Eric, and they have switched.
Oh, they're at lunch.
Trolls, Manila, and that.
Yeah. Oh well.
So it's very spread out.
Can we move this one down later?
I don't know what's happening.
If we can, then he can come back from lunch. 11:45. He'll be back at like what 12:30. 12:45. So an hour. I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah.
We could pull some of those replication ones.
Yeah, but they're
The other kids in that same group, yeah.
they play like some card games.
Yeah. If if that's all we have left, then whatever. Don't sweat it.
I don't know that we want to wait. Is there anything at all to say about scalable backup?
I think we discussed it all.
Already.
So what now? Beer?
So what is the scalable backup solution?
The solution. I think Tom can explain that if everybody. That's pretty interesting, even for me.
Is there any overlap with that, with the idea that we've kind of had floating around for a long time with the Cinder data server?
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it once.
We floated that idea a couple of mid-cycle meetups a while back, and I think he was kind of liking that idea because it could help that too, and it would help a lot of other things, I think. I know, but
So I put that on
So right now, how the scalable backup works from what I see, I'm maybe a little wrong, but it asks the backup asks the Cinder volume that holds the volume to prepare a copy for the backup service to actually read the backup. So and this copy is attached to the backup host. So
so it doesn't attach.
So it doesn't. So the backup doesn't need to be on the same host with the Cinder volume.
That's exactly what the Cinder data service was going to do too. And that's for copy image to volume and volume to image operations. So it seems to make sense to either
try
make
to
them one or have a core capability that knows how to do that volume attaching type stuff. And then safely, and then put backup. Well, the backup stuff could sit on top of it and drive the safe part of it, right? Which does prepare the copy and then attach. I don't know. It kind of.
Yes, it seems like a fair topic to discuss.
Because if he's going to go through the trouble of creating a whole new service, then hey, let's look at this too, because this seems to have quite a bit of overlap.
I mean, well. The patch actually for the scalable is has 2 +2 and -2 from backend, so it's almost there.
Okay.
But yes, finding a common solution for all those 3, maybe to just merge them in the future.
Oh yeah, his -2 was just -2 the whole.
Yes, because he had this issue with backup.
All right.
With,
well, this may throw a whole wrench in his plans then. I don't know. Having a scalable backup is nice, and whether we should. Yeah. Okay. That same one. I didn't stop it. Yeah. I just left to go.
Hang out break.
Yeah, of us just chit-chatting and whatever.
Healing videos.
Yeah, it was almost over.
It's a kind of a charity.
All right, guys, let's start the party. They're shrimp regrets it. Yeah.
Okay. So Tom, this scalable backup is just well, it was it's Lisa's patch. Now, okay. We're going to talk to them about scalable backup patch. You put it down to -2 so to keep it from merging.
I thought we should merge that.
We were trying to delay it.
It was approved.
There's a couple of kids that are having
-2.
coworkers.
Then did it merge anyway?
No.
Oh, good.
Actually, coworkers that are doing the work on this.
I'm surprised it's not merged already.
So,
I thought I was merging and somebody told me it was merged.
-2, that's
that's Ivan, there's a quick one.
That's what I was
querying volume.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with it. I'm just sorry.
When you said, hasn't it merged already? Probably because you the driver the form directly attached.
What?
Like anybody said to you, Chef is back as a shorter backup and cheaper.
So
Maybe we can go through this patch or.
Aaron, we're starting up again. I told Lisa we'd do it tomorrow morning, where she could fly. Okay. I don't know. Well, that's why it was.
That's cool.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth discussing now and then seeing if there's anything more? We could do that. I don't think she's job. It's kind of. Yeah. Keep my word. We've gotten to the point where we're juggling subjects. If it turns out there are residual controversial issues,
I know when the backup service was originally written way back west, it was originally written as terrible service with one separate deep and not single.
So why don't you tell people the background on this when we talk about it?
Yeah, why don't we get started?
And then we'll.
And
then if there were some residual issues, we'll work them out.
So I also raised the issue of the overlap with the idea of the single data service too, because it has a lot of similarities with that.
Correct.
And
My
if there's any way
thought was we shouldn't let the more utopian goal block the practical goal, and in fact, this could be a prototype for the more utopian thing.
That's fine.
If people want to do that.
I just wanted to raise it.
I think it's a very valid point. Okay. It's just
if we have code that's about ready to land, then let's get that in.
Yeah. And I think a lot. I think we can build off of it.
When we
people
go
want to. Sure.
Either we can make just a separate service that looks a lot like in the backup.
And then share some of the code. Yeah.
For instance, it might
That's all I care about. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. People say I don't want to be processing, but what about why don't you want to be processing?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But no, that's a good point that you brought out. That represents as it is right now, it's only, no one's really looked at the remote ones like RBD and.
Yeah, I think it's broken. Why I want to stop it.
Hey, Eric.
It's a set. See,
I'm
going
to
through
see the
this.
scalable backup.
I need to check. I left on it without.
It'll be interesting.
So, Duncan's concern is that
Prove
he doesn't
that,
think this would work
but
with
I don't know
things
if
like
the
RBD.
backup tests are running there.
I think this backs up
I
two
think
steps,
so.
not two.
Yeah, I think we should look at that and see how the. We were
This CLI backs up to Ceph as a backup target, not the Swift as a backup target. And that uses totally different code. Ceph is Ceph backup cell.
So is this problem related to the fact that you don't actually mount the RBD volume? Because Brick has a connector for RBD, but it returns an object that you can't really do anything with.
Not sure.
No.
Okay.
Should we pull up this patch?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can point out where it's going to
I saw your patch was at
None.
No. Volume driver.
And it's testing all the boards except for AMCs.
Yeah, chef to chef use a totally different code type. This is back in the switch from sunset. Oh, yeah. And I think chef to switch was right.
I mean, what we're doing is, overall, what we're doing is currently, actually, Doug may want to give the background on what was originally intended and why we kind of made a compromise that we're trying to undo at this point.
Yeah. When I show in the microphone,
It's right here.
hopefully you can hear me. If not, so we'll hopefully, yeah.
Is it charged yet? Or it's probably charged enough.
Yeah. Not really known as being too quiet, but you know. So the backup service originally was, how do I understand it? The backup service originally was supposed to be, before we realised all the problems with active volume, it was supposed to be, I think, an awful lot like Cinder volume, in that it instantiates its own copy of the driver, and it happens to only call the backup methods, but in every other way, it's like a Cinder volume service. We didn't know all of the race conditions that existed there, but they used to go through the scheduler, and then at the last minute we discovered the LVM at the time couldn't do a remote attach. John fixed that very shortly after, but we never got around to unwinding all the compromises we made for it. So the idea was you could run N Cinder backup services, and it would instantiate whatever driver it needed all the time it needed to do the backup. So it would instantiate the driver, call a NIT and everything. The backup method would do whatever it does, a volume attach for most people, and you could run N of these things, and independent of your back ends, they would instantiate drivers and that sort of thing. So that was the original intent. Since then, the world has moved on quite a bit. Some drivers react very badly to that. So this came along, which is kind of a compromise. But this starts trying to create devices and things which can't do. Can't do.
So overall, what this is trying to do is current backup service imports all the volume drivers, right? And it has to run on the same node as the volume. It calls a backup method in the volume driver, which then invokes backup code, chunk driver or Ceph or whatever to get the stuff done. So if you look at all those nice architectural diagrams of OpenStack with a message bus and everything loosely coupled and messages going over that, put that picture and you try to fit the backup code onto that and you realize, hey, it's not doing that. The volume code is down here, and I've got the MPQ bus right here, and I've got some volume processes down here and backup process up here. They're not messaging over this or anything. It's just sucking it in and running it, right? So it's a tightly coupled architecture. So what we're trying to do here is say, okay, let's have, obviously, if I want to copy a volume, the content of a volume in my left hand, and stick it in Swift over here in my right hand or in NFS or whatever, I need to be able to, roughly speaking, attach to the volume so I can suck the stuff out of it. I'm a very technical speaker. Suck the stuff out of the volume over here and put it over here, right? But doing it by importing the volume driver and so on is very tightly coupled and wrong. So we're trying to use RPC for what it's intended to do. And the first cut here is we say, okay, the attach code that currently is being done by running the volume driver method itself from backup, we instead do an RPC. So it requires a remote attach. So now you're pointing out that for That's not going to literally work right now for Ceph and Sheepdog.
Yes, because what they do is they give you back, their backup method gives you a Python file-like object.
Right. And for the bulk of drivers, this works, I believe. You know, just you taking that approach.
But I suppose you like one or a file system like one if it works.
Right, it works for NFS as well, and so on. So now the question is, and I think we talked about this, but just doing it more publicly, is that a showstopper opposition to this approach? Does it force us into having a tightly coupled, no RPC approach? And I think your answer is no. You just need to make some adjustments.
I think this is a showstopper. This approach will not work for the driver you cannot do a local attach.
So,
Okay.
here's the other thing, and I don't know how much you guys have. I mean, I know some of the reasons why the back and forth was done initially, and I think they were the right choice. But what I wonder now is if we need to revisit that, which you're starting to do. But I'm not sure I follow why, until you get into the, I guess you get into the thing of spawning multiple backend services. I'm not sure I understand why you would want to make it an independent service and go down the RPC route.
It is incredible if you've got lots of backups going on.
Right, and that's what I assume, and that does make sense. But what I'm wondering is if there's a hybrid in between, because what I always thought was those backup calls aren't very different from what we do with image volume.
Oh, I totally agree.
We were just talking the other way, and we want to split those out to cinder volume as well.
Eventually.
Because again, if you're doing 1,000 volumes,
horrible idea. Just so you know,
1,000 bits per volume.
Right. But John, I think that's a very valuable conversation to have. I wouldn't want to put that larger kind of boil the ocean subject in front of the question of just what do we do with backup itself. So the practical problem with backup today is that in many cases, backup, contrary to what you might think, is CPU bound.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, but I mean, not contrary to you, but what one might naively come into, I did, say, oh, backup, that's an I/O operator, fundamentally. So we can gain parallelism through green threads in that kind of, because green threads are going to block, and that will work. But what we know from, and Duncan came in and reported this, the groups are very familiar with it, I'm sure, is that if you're running SSL and if you're doing compression and stuff like that, you end up being CPU bound. Green threads don't help you in that kind of context at all. So the kind of parallelism that can help over the system as a whole is scale-out parallelism in processes. And then the kind of parallelism can help you on a particular job is more like C library, getting out of Python.
No, I get it. I mean, I totally get it. And I don't necessarily disagree. I guess my problem is, so you go that route, and now you need to start looking at load balancers, the whole 9 yards.
Why?
Not necessarily.
No, it's not at all. You can either go through the scheduler, or you can just let Rabbit Robert them, the queue.
And we're taking a don't gold plate approach, right? So eventually you could do a scheduler if that makes sense.
We let John talk a second, because you might spot something we have.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So the concern I have is so the case that I'm thinking of is a single volume. You want to back it up. You want to back it up in number of processes.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, you have to have some way to spread that job out.
That's not what we're doing in this case. We're looking at systemic.
That isn't what we're doing here.
That's not what this is about.
I understand that, but that's where we're going.
No, that's not what this is about.
No.
That might be a fine thing to work on. That's not what this is about.
I wouldn't go any further than threads. Using more than one CPU on a machine to do that conversion for one volume would be great, but I wouldn't have one volume being backed.
Yeah, but just to be very clear, that's a fine problem. I think it should be worked on, should be figured out. This is not an attempt to address that problem.
Okay, so back up.
This is an attempt to address the basically overall throughput of multiple backups. We have live backups now, right? So if you're running a cloud and you want to do a whole bunch of backups and you want to be able to get them done Or take restores. This is an even better case. Backups I can plan in advance. But restores tend to be, do a lot on weekends, do a lot of at nights, whatever. They tend to be, do a lot, right? Yeah. So if you do a timeline, you see a low baseline and high peaks, right? And on restores, that's even more the case because those tend to be unanticipated.
We're on the same page. So the thing is I oversimplify things. So to me, that case is actually the same model that I'm talking about with the same model. It doesn't matter. It's the same problem, right?
Well, it's not because of Python.
Explain the problem, please.
So,
okay.
I mean, I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that the thing that I was raising is what I viewed as a problem and why you would want things
sure.
Balancer and stuff like that. It still applies in this, if I understand correctly, because what you're talking about is you're saying I have volume 1, volume 2, volume n, right? And what I want to be able to do is say, hey, I want to restore all these, simultaneously or whatever, or back or whatever. But in order to do that efficiently, obviously, because of the CPU-bound system that we have and everything else, what you're going to do is you're going to have multiple backup services or backup nodes or workers or whatever you want to call them, right, that are doing those tasks.
But only one volume per backup service.
Yeah, and that's fine. Honestly, in my opinion, you can translate that across to a single volume and chunk it out, and it's not.
No, that's a much harder problem. I've been working on that for 2 years.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, in my mind, I don't think it's that hard. It still has the same. And maybe it is. Maybe it's way harder than I think. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the point is, so now you've got end services. Mm-hmm. You're going to have all these guys just hanging around and running all the time?
Yeah. When they're idle, they get the process.
If you read the blueprint I wrote, John, if you read the blueprint I wrote, I envision eventually, first of all, I think we should address one problem at a time. First video is you can't make progress on this as long as you keep them tightly coupled, is what I assert. Now, second, then eventually, and Duncan might disagree with me, and you might agree with me, there's a reasonable discussion we have all kinds of things. I could imagine some kind of elastic spawning of these things, and I could imagine that being done at a higher level than Cinder per se, or something like that, but you ain't going to get that until you have the decoupling.
For the purposes of what we're proposing here, the answer to John's question is absolutely yes, we're going to have a bunch of those lying around.
So,
but see, I'm trying to separate, make distinctions between the different problems. They're related, but reasonable people can disagree about
we can change that later, but right now, yes, we intend to have N of them lying around.
Okay. So my problem with that, there's a couple of things. One of the reasons why we did multi-backend is people were looking at it and saying, hey, this is dumb because I have a SolidFire, a DRV, RVD, whatever, all these different backends. Mm-hmm. They don't actually do anything on the single volume node, but I'm tying up all of this hardware by deploying all these nodes and having to just
yeah.
Right. So that's one problem.
Right. So that's not a problem with what we've advocated, though. That's what I want to be clear. No, because this does not force a decision one way or the other of whether you do Duncan's approach and leave resources lying around, or whether you say they're decoupled, so now it is possible to elastically deploy if we come up with a way to do that. It doesn't force an answer to that one way or the other. It makes possible both answers.
And for example,
we can't do either of those today.
For example, for Helion, I'm thinking of shoving one of these on a bunch of compute nodes.
So here's the thing. So that sounds well and good. Yeah, I'll just throw it out here, throw it out there, whatever. Yeah. The whole problem you're trying to solve is the fact that these are CPU bound and they're using up CPU. So you're going to take these and you're going to start throwing them willy-nilly across your compute nodes? Your customers are going to love that.
Well, they're only using one CPU on a 128 CPU box, 128, on a 60-core box.
So
but you're both arguing about a different question than what this intends to solve. It's a problem that this makes possible that you can't address that problem one way or the other with today's solution.
So we can back up.
So you might want 10 of these in one box if you've got a very fat box that is doing mostly control service stuff, or you might want to spread them around so that you're not dedicating one box to backup.
Yeah.
But either way, yes, each service is going to be a single CPU.
So where I was going with this, okay, start. The point I was trying to make was there's two things in my mind. The first thing is you're absolutely right. The coupling that we have right now is a problem. Right? So how do you want to do that and where things end up falling? That's kind of up to you. I think there's a pretty good model on how we do some of the stuff already. I would disagree that you should break out each copy and stuff. But okay.
I also want to put that's a conversation we can have.
Absolutely.
You know, in light of the experience
my point
with this.
Is just keep that in mind, and whatever you're going to do, keep in mind that you're probably wanting to share a solution if possible. Make it something similar.
Yep.
I think right now, more of the logic and the state and everything that's done is held in volume. So what I'm thinking is, instead of doing some of the stuff that we do today and instantiating a whole new driver and everything else, what we should have is just communications over RPC or whatever it is, and an internal API to that stuff out. So that would be way better. This creates a problem with multi-attach, once again, which sucks because in your model you put it on a compute nodes. Well, guess what? Now you have a duplicate IQN for that target, so then we have to go back to making sure we don't allow you to attach into a backup of a volume that's already attached.
We don't allow that anyway, and we're never going to allow that. Yeah, we take a snapshot.
That's fine.
Yeah, a backup of a live volume that actually multi-attach never makes sense because you'll never get something that's consistent.
No,
I mean, I think you're pointing to a real problem, and I think it's one solved, you know, with the snapshot.
The other thing is, quite frankly, there have been, and I know it's another one, but there have been 4 proposals for backup services for OpenStack.
That's right.
And as of Tokyo, there's been 2 more. And
one pop echo.
All the more reason to make the mature, well understood backup service work well. So
what is the mature, well understood backup?
Well, I want to say let me say the better, the more mature, better understood. I believe that we understand.
How do you assert that?
Well, I assert that on the basis of the fact that the smog proposal, wonderful, interesting, boil the ocean, utopian thing that may work out well over the long run. Okay, but it also says it's going to rely on underlying backup services like Cinder. You know, so I don't see it as incompatible. What's the other one that the application aware freezer. Freezer is not in the same possibility space. Relies on Cinder backup. Whether you like, and then the new one that's being proposed that they want to make sure the APIs don't overlap. Okay, they're all at different levels. We have something that's already there, that already works, that could be improved. I don't think the fact that other people are proposing, I mean, I think it shows that there are needs out there that are perhaps not being fully addressed. It also shows that backup's a popular subject for clouds.
Very good salesman.
Yeah, but I think that we're talking about concrete, real problems and ways of trying to improve what we have and make it work better, and that's the goal. Now, whether we're actually getting there or not, you know, is a different question. Whether we can handle the sap and sheepdogs with the current proposal, or we need to, whether it can just be tweaked, or whether it's fundamentally wrong. And what we should do instead. If it's fundamentally wrong, we want to scuttle it and take a new approach. I'd like to see that spelled out. I don't fully understand that yet, and I can't go back and explain that to Lisa yet. I don't think that McCall, who's been behind it, or Yvonne, who's +2, did fully understand that yet. So we need to get, ideally we would have done more of that during the blueprint stage. But, you know, this shit happens, you know. I mean, I'm not, so let's talk it through. And
I think John's point about not instantiating the full driver in the backup service, in light of everything we found with scalability and stuff, is great. If we could make the backup method in the driver, and it'd probably have to be a new one just for upgrading stuff, spit out something that is like a connector.
And so that's my point. What I'm asking, what I'm trying to figure out is, why do you even need any of that special stuff? So what I'm saying is, you could actually completely decouple this to the point where a Cinder volume driver doesn't know what a backup is. It doesn't have to. Because all you need is a attach.
Yeah, but you can't attach everything. That's the fundamental problem.
But you can't. You can't attach everything. That's my point. That's why I'm saying you have a fundamental problem in your design. Because you can't. You can right now replace this with compute. Nova compute. It's the same thing. The end goal is the exact same thing. You need to attach a volume and read and write to it.
Okay, so you could
John, that's actually what I'm trying to do.
So you
And he's saying that won't work for sheepdog itself.
so, sorry, no, John's not saying quite that.
It's a
John,
little different. It's
John
a
is
slight-
saying you can attach to a hypervisor, and you always can attach to a hypervisor. So we could run the Cinder backup inside a hypervisor. I just think that's vile.
So the problem, so here's the problem with, so it depends on now if you're going down the instance path, right? I'm not necessarily saying a hypervisor. I'm saying a physical node.
No, you can't attach everything to a physical node. So Sheepdog and Seth attach at the hypervisor level. They attach at
the hypervisor level, but they also have mechanisms to allow you to attach to a physical node.
both of which are low quality, badly tested, buggy code. The Seth less so. The Sheepdog one is terrible still. Because it's just not a use case that their code is pushing for. It only exists for...
So here's my dumb question, okay?
Those kernel drivers, the Seth and Sheepdog, are terrible.
Here's my proposal. Then quit dicking around with all of this and go with what you know is going to work and where we need to go in the future anyway, and run this on an instance.
Here's my plea. I haven't seen either of you spend any time on this review. You have a little bit right now. You're both coming in with nice new utopian things. Not utopian.
You're absolutely right.
You know, after I would ask you both to go and look at the review. Lisa, I worked hard on it in Kilo for a while and put out talk. I had other priorities while I was working at my last job and didn't work on it. And Intel picked it up and moved it along. Mikal and Lisa and people have invested a lot of work in this. Done very high quality work, I think. It may not work out, but I haven't seen the scrutiny of the. I've seen you, pardon me, but I don't yet know. We have not had the dialogue to follow this out before we say let's scuttle this different approach. Pardon? It's not that I dislike what you said.
No, what I'm going to say is I think the whole model that we have right now is broken and doesn't work.
Well, that might be, but I would like somebody to actually look at this concretely because I think it could work probably. Okay. I hear two drivers that there might be an issue with, but it's not clear to me that you couldn't have a smaller adjustment so that basically we're moving an attach out of the driver into the manager, backup manager. Okay, it's controlling the attach part. Now we've got two drivers where the same model of attach isn't going to work. It's not clear to me, for RBD, it's not clear to me that we can't, what do? We have a TCP connection, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that's a hard physical connection to the device. So it's not clear to me that the driver could not work with RBD by basically kind of special casing that kind of driver to handle it. Instead of RPC to the volume to do a remote attach, that it couldn't do something else.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. There's a backup method in the driver right now.
Right. We move that method into the manager.
Can I actually finish talking, please?
I'm sorry.
And right now, it gives you back a Python-like object, a Python file-like object.
Sure.
Right now, the context that needs to run in is the driver. If you can make the thing it gives you back more location not specific, if you give back a pickle, like the entire Python object that gives you back, and hand it over the wire to the remote backup service, I think that's probably usable. So it's only the attach part of this that's the problem. And I think it might well be solvable.
And then we use the attach for the drivers where we do that.
No,
we do this for all of them. You're
make it
what
the
you're
same
suggesting.
problem,
So the RPD grip does almost that. It returns you the Python object that you actually use the IO.
Yeah.
But that's low. But that's file. That's low.
Yes, that's what
But that's actually deploys Cinder with set with backups in suite. That doesn't seem to make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
If you had set, do your backups in set.
No, there are definitely people who want to do backups to cold storage. I mean, the thing about Ceph is some people use file storage on Ceph, but some use Swift for their objects. There are absolutely people who do that.
Right, right. I mean, the whole scheme is there's no necessary correspondence between the volume.
The entire point of the backup is it moves you to a completely different storage one.
Okay.
Right.
No, there's also the case. There's also the case where someone wants to use Ceph for both and optimize on that. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that's not a very legitimate use case as well.
You can.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, the current backup context that we're working in right now, there isn't a correspondence. The whole so-called chunk driver approach. You know, we don't care what kind of volume you have. The incremental backup scheme that Xing developed will work for it. It doesn't depend on that. There's another approach to backup where you optimize by having the same kind of volume and repository, and that's a fine thing too.
So I'll look at that brick connector for RDB. If that's doing what I understand it's doing, we'll take off what the backup server does for RDB anyway.
Yeah.
We might just have to write one of those for Sheepdog.
Right.
And
the connector connect volume returns a dictionary that says what type of connector return.
Yeah.
Normally it's a block device path.
Yeah.
Does the fiber channel.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that. I think it may be RPD type, and it's a Python object that is used by IO directly with that object. I think it came from the original RPD driver.
Yeah.
It's Cinder, so.
Yeah. That's what the backup one does. So cool.
This one may work just for that, but
yeah.
Sheepdog is.
So we might just have to write one of those for Sheepdog, and we're done.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we say every new driver has to make sure it's got that bit in brick so it works. So you just make this attach to a call into brick every time. You say, give me a connector for this volume. That's actually quite a small change.
So since Lisa's doing the work, she's 12 or 13 hours off from us right now. It's been doing great work. It would be really helpful if you can write some of that down in a form that we can transmit to her.
Yes.
Rather than me being telephone game on that.
Yeah. No,
and John, you may be right that we should do something entirely different eventually.
No.
You know what I mean? I want to kind of look at time horizons in terms of that. No, I want to listen and learn too on that front. I also just don't want to scuttle. No, I just don't want to. I don't want to scuttle the good work that's that she's done, unless it's absolutely necessary. So yeah, if you can help, because I'm not confident about being able to articulate.
If I
Shanghai, I don't know, it's 12 or 13 hours off of here, I think.
You could just pick this up again tomorrow morning. Yeah. And you can join.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because where I'm coming from, the idea that it's RPC to an attach, that's a mechanism. I'm not wedded to that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get it out of. I wanted to quit importing the driver and decouple them.
Yeah.
And that was a way to do that I saw, because it was a way that we do it in other contexts.
When we originally wrote it, we assumed, which it was true, basically true at the time with the drivers we had, that anything could import the driver, and that was okay, like active volume ranges. We assumed at the time that was totally doable.
Right.
The limitations of that crept in after. So, but if brick connector works for RDB, we can just write one of those for every driver, make sure there's one of those for every driver, and just use those. Great, job done.
We need to fix that anyway, or resolve that issue anyway. Brick and RBD and the connector. I mean, I followed down the corner of my eye that you guys are going to be working for that too.
Well, again, as long as we write something in brick, all we can be about the file like object.
Well, the problem is that I think it assumes that you have raw formatted stuff. QCal.
That's another issue. I mean, that's an important issue, but we have that today, right?
Yeah, but if we're always using some interface in brick that says, give me a file like object, a raw
quite like objects.
So they do become tightly coupled.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to distinguish between, we have so many issues that come up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A QCal Python reader. QCal is not complicated.
Well, it's not just QCal. There's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
But
QCal is not that complicated.
we need to go find that guy that was doing.
Chuck these bytes out of the QCal image is very doable. So I did it when I was doing the QCal security problems.
Okay, so we'll pick it up again tomorrow morning. I want to check a couple other things because I've had some sidebar conversations with Duncan and with Gorka, and we ought to kind of have it out in the open, on this. Gorka's talking to me the other day and said, scalable backup thing you guys are doing is cool, but I have 2 concerns. One is that if we leave backup and volume tightly coupled, then we get HA active for free for backup when we get it for volume service. They're on the same node, whatever. So, and we talked about that a bit, and so that's nice, but isn't that just kind of a fortunate expedience? And when are we going to get active anyway? And he said, well, N probably. It'll be N before we see it.
If we get this working, we get active volume backup independent of the volume active.
And we kind of had that conversation, and he said, I'm happy with that as long as we don't end up with another just as we land active volume, we end up having a big scalable service that's not going to be able to support active. So I think that conversation went kind of along the lines you're saying, is that, so as long as
I think this
we'll rely on some of the same mechanisms.
I think this will automatically be active because
eliminate the race conditions, state changes.
Yeah, which we've already got the code in for. That's all queued.
No,
they're all queued, just not merged, they're queued.
Yeah. So that should come in on the right time. The other concern he had, and this is, basically I'm playing straight man for Duncan here, is, well, today you can run backup to multiple backends. Well, how do you do that? Well, you run on multiple nodes. You give them different sender comp. One sender comp's pointing at Swift, another's pointing at Ceph or TSM or something like that. They have different configurations. Well, how's the second? The API doesn't know. We don't have a scheduler. We don't have any. How's this work? I mean, is it totally random? Which, I do a cast out there, one guy grabs it or not? No, because it's coupled. We're sending it to the appropriate. We look at the volume today to determine the host. And we send it to the host associated with the volume. So as long as you put one set of volumes over here, and they get backed up to Swift backends, another set of backends over here, and they get backed up to Ceph, it'll all work out. And so my response back to him was, well, if we need to do that, we can interpolate a scheduler when we need to between API and the manager.
Is that more than a theoretical concern?
Yeah. So I'm triggering Duncan on this because now you can talk. Sorry.
My first thing there is show me one real deployment that's actually doing that rather than theoretical.
Well, the first thing you said is that's not a supported configuration that he's talking about today.
People keep
that's
asking.
Just theoretical.
Yeah. People keep asking, can we have multiple backup targets? And I've gone, what is your use case? And they've gone very quiet, and the thing's gone away. People have been asking that for nearly 2 years now, and every single time they've utterly failed to come up with a concrete use case. So I'm leaving that in the realms of the theoretical until somebody proves otherwise, and I'm not overly worried about.
So suppose there's real use cases come along, then you become persuaded that we need to do it.
Then we can add it through the scheduler.
Then we'd add it through a scheduler. If it really came down. Yeah. If we decided this, of course, now we might decide to deploy in a different way than elastically or something rather than through the traditional scheduler model, and I think that would be the right time to ask the question. But
again, none of this design stops us doing any of those things.
Right. So just to back up again, take one step back again. the aim of this is to, we're thinking big about possibilities and stuff, but it's just to take a very small step that doesn't actually commit us to makes possible a conversation about generalization to a data service or not. Makes possible conversations about whether how, should we scale out by dedicating resources, or should we somehow elastically provision them? Should we run them in VMs? Should we run them in containers? Any of those models, these things are running as separate processes rather than green threads within a single process on one big machine that you would scale up. That's my thought. All right, so we'll spend a brief time on it tomorrow with Lisa, and Duncan, need you to articulate, because you'll do it better than I.
I need to read that brick code, but it sounds like there's most of what we need is covered
What
by
we
brick,
need to do.
and that's awesome.
When it gets done, obviously is a concern, but if we can make some forward steps in this release, that would be great.
Can I have a comment on the review so Lisa will be able to?
I'm going to write that up now, yeah. Yeah. And I say, if Lisa can't join tomorrow, I can talk to her next week, because I'm much closer to her time zone. I'm at home. I'm only a few hours out. I talk to her at time zone all the time.
Do we leave next year? Okay.
We're back to peace and love.
No, not yet. It should be close. It's 12:30 back. No, we already covered that.
Which is for tomorrow.
Okay.
This question about where the volume was.
Yeah.
And we can discuss with John the which connector.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anthony's not here, so I was hoping to hold off until he can try to hang out, kind of explain his work that he's been doing here. I was hoping to get him more involved.
We should be able to use that to solve the backup problem. We'll have to make sure the sheepdog one works as well. But
There's some other topic. So it's sort of related to this whole discussion that we had just a minute ago, using Brick itself to get something back that can be used to do the backup, right? So there is an RBD connector in Brick today that returns a Python object that you can do IO. And that's kind of sort of why that first comment is there, is that most of the connectors in Brick today return you the device path of the processor that is the block class, right? So RDB is the only one that's different in this case. And we had talked about either removing it because of this difference, and I don't know if anyone that was actually using it, but it seems from this discussion it makes sense to leave it in.
But it gets used during volume migration as well.
Okay.
So this would be the backup would be the second.
Okay. So
You copy the image, do you attach?
That's creation code.
It does, yes.
This,
we can. So
That's the problem with migration.
it isn't. It isn't tested in the gate. That's progress. Got to patch.
I will not what it and understand why it works.
Why?
I can do migration between two separate clusters by end because we call the connector for your management migration.
reconnect doesn't connect with them.
We can talk about it. You're doing retype because migration policy is on demand.
I think it's related to the fact that all of the other factors in Brick make the assumption that you're going to get a device on the host that you can do things with, right? Indirectly. And this path is what you use. RBD is different. You use a Python object, and you have to use that Python object to read your device. Right?
Yeah, and it splits the logic in the migration path as well. If one of your source or destination is one of these, then you fall out of the DD between two paths, move to moving bytes between two files. So
there is a type that is also returned at the bottom of the next line, right? That specifies, hey, this is an RBD type.
Right. And we look at those types, and if one of them is of that type, then we take a different path. And that's how migration works for RBD.
I think that's fine. The only difference is that in the case of attaching a volume to an instance, RBD code is not used at all. The connector is recognized.
I guess it depends on how you define attach, but like if attach equals having a path to a proper block, then yes, it's not like that.
But Nova are talking about pulling the ice stuff from attaching to the output.
I don't like that either. There's a lot of problems. That's a whole separate discussion.
I mean, one alternative is we can
pull it.
But no, pull the ice stuff into the hypervisor. So
make iSCSI work like RBD.
Do direct ice
That was mentioned.
Oh, there's still people pushing ahead with it.
No, there's still John Harvard specifically wants to push ahead with that and replace all of this. Every attached directly into the print. And there's a lot of that. We should shelve that and talk about that.
Well, that's another thing. That's not a here thing at the moment.
They're going to miss out on a lot of features. They're going to be all over it.
So I guess my first question is, can we do the connector in Brick? From our discussions on IRC last week, it sounded like there were some questions to whether or not it belonged. Right. So if it doesn't belong, then I need to refactor the driver so that migration won't fail after it's written. If it can stay, that would be great. By all means, migration continues to work. Duncan and Lisa can potentially leverage that for backup. In addition to that, the other projects can share the connection code, which would be really nice. They're working on a Trove backup driver. Nova is a different beast, but Glance could take advantage of that sharing as well. I see value there, but maybe Brick is not the place to be sharing connection code. Maybe it is a better place. I look to you.
So the only odd thing about it is that there are other methods in the base class for Brick that make assumptions that you're getting out of defining.
I had to work around that
specifically. And so and it just doesn't conform to that right now. So
can we change the definition of it and allow for alternatives?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it depends on what we define the scope of Brick to be. Is it it's just going to manage SCSI and Fiber and every other protocol to go somewhere else, or if it's supposed to. Yeah, or
it sounds like adding Sheepdog and whatever else needs this magic to Brick connectors might fix some migration problems with Sheepdog as well. Because migration with Sheepdog is totally broken. If it can take a similar path to Ceph, if it can use the same code paths.
Or we just add a little bit more flexibility to the connector itself. In the case where if you have a specific that doesn't support these types of things, then it does the appropriate thing for those APIs.
Yeah.
That don't make any sense at all to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that probably makes more sense.
Yeah. We've got to solve.
The point of Brick was to have a central place where this stuff is shared to it.
Okay. It sounds like this problem needs solving in multiple places. Right. So we might as well do it in Brick. And if you're not running away screaming the idea, let's do it in Brick because
that's fine.
15 guys on openstack-cinder in our cafeteria and see if they can get them out of their cart. It's just the problem is if you go first thing, it's 5 a.m. for them.
Tell them first thing, you need to be here at this specific time.
Have you ever
Use it without use this. Yeah, we'll probably because I've been using so I'm not using RVD. What else do we have? Docker. I just go to the RVD file and just format it, mount it. Yeah. Just want to make sure I was. We can fold that into our. Managing bugs.
Thank you.
How we run it. Yeah. I brought this up before. But I do think the bugs are really nasty.
Yeah.
How bugs
People
get
propose
how bugs
that
get
for just backup format yeah, somebody was looking at that, and I think it works.
Maybe there's a need for stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this. So do we want to get this conversation? Because like depending. That's why I stuck it.
I think there was some reason that some of the Nova guys.
Should we take a break?
What are the topics
Someone put on there just kind of a general discussion of where Cinder is going. Kind of add something like that. We were just talking about maybe having a discussion on bug handling, how we want to do that. Do we need a bug czar in Cinder like they have in Nova? Yeah. Yes. Okay, let's take a break.
My dad's always entertained by your updates.
You've given all the
Anything you tag me in.
Oh, okay.
So I tell you, like a month ago or so, Allison was going back to like our shared Facebook history and liked a comment I made back last August. Yeah.
Here, I'm going to take another picture. You guys get closer.
Are you really want to do that?
A little bit.
You don't want crazy coming over here.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah, leave that away from crazy. I'm trying to protect you.
Everyone.
Yeah, so please don't mess with Kendall. Good point.
I'll just look at her and be like, sorry, you got the wrong there.
We're all full on crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
The email client reads my email and proposes to stop.
That's creepy. That's
I hadn't noticed that before because it's an update to my itinerary for when we go to Florida.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Did you get my email? I just wanted to make sure you saw it." And so I hit reply. So I was like, "Yes, I did, thank you." Yes, I did receive it, or no, I didn't receive it.
You find me a meeting slide that I would normally do.
I mean, it sounds like it can do that. If you could just conduct all of your meetings via email, you'd be fine.
Then I'm just going to get replaced by some. And then they would have played with case that. These 4 days ago, it's really going to hurt. Yeah.
You really should. Just like an hour. That's plenty of time. Think we can get NetApp to supply blankets and pillows?
Would like to be part of, midcycle requirements.
Yeah, we'll provide.
Conference room, Wi-Fi, power strip.
Yeah.
The last one, it's like, that was like the one thing we came to consensus on was we need like a corner for people to crash.
Yeah. Next time we have a you have like the wellness center, you have yoga room. I've gone there.
I could just nap under my desk and no one would know. My desk faces away from the door, and there's plenty of space under there for me.
Yeah, and what I do when I nap under my desk,
room under there.
grab a
Nap under you
driver and a
actually.
cable. And if someone says, hey Scott, you come up, and you pull the screwdriver, say, yeah.
Oh yeah, you rub your eye.
I've got a lot of naps. The yoga mat one is good. Just go down to the wellness center, get on the yoga mat. Yeah, come on, real low.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is it? What is the actual name?
It's Anthony.
I could like fake write cell phone numbers on napkins in like early handwriting for you. You want that? We'll fill your suitcase with them. Put them in this pocket, stick them there. No, JS technically.
Oh, that'd be really fun. All right.
Put some more. You're getting him in trouble by putting pictures up at where I'm sitting next to him.
You want me to
message it to you?
I'm sure she doesn't care to hear more about it.
Probably not. Yeah.
That's my wife.
Is Anthony back?
Oh, you're saying, okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Jesus, man.
Oh, there.
You guys are really good bugs. What's that? You guys are really good at your bug list.
Well,
Oh, we're not going to go over the bugs.
Yeah. See ya.
We just say that to drive people out of here.
What? 4 years, all right.
4 years.
How old is that? That's pretty old.
Yeah, keep it until it just doesn't work anymore.
Do you have an excuse for more than for 2 or more international trips a year?
Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping.
Well, that's the criteria. That's the criteria.
Yeah, but then I'm worried they might just say, then you just can't go on it.
No, you still got to approval though. But that's apparently easier now.
I didn't do it.
Well, I can send you a message. Or you can,
Still waiting on someone there, Kurt?
No, we're going to go.
Stop doing it.
All right.
Let's get going again.
Anthony's muted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good.
Okay. Do you have video?
Andrew, you want to put who you see him or you have to hang up?
At some point, one of those other projects takes off. All of this work.
Your spell finding wrong.
IRC.
No.
Kurt, you want to post that right now?
This one?
Yeah, I just posted it.
Oh, there's a rack. My problem is bounce on the AWS. My house. Yeah,
Anthony, cool. Hey, Anthony, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right, you're up. So, do you have the Etherpad link?
Can you paste the link again? I don't have it right in front of me.
Yep. Coming right up. No, not that one. There. So down at the bottom, we have a section OS brick querying volume paths. Go over that next.
Yep. Okay, I have it.
Great. Go ahead.
All right. So this is kind of a tool Walt and I were using during our live migration testing, and it turned out to be pretty useful. We were kind of trying to find a place to put it. It lets you query different volume paths as well as all the volume paths on a system. So on the other pad, I did put two patch links. One was for OS Brick, one is for E1's Python Brick Center client extension. Just kind of wanted to talk about the idea of how useful tools like this would be and what location they should go in. Like, should they go in OS Brick, some external repository? Should they go in Nova directly?
And to be clear, this is just a tool for troubleshooting, mostly developers?
Yeah, it's more for like developers, maybe CI. CIs could probably automate it eventually in some form if they want to.
So Anthony, can you explain specifically what we used it for and and the purpose of it a little bit better to describe, and then might get a little bit of a background.
All right. Let me open up one of the patches because I put a lot of detail in one of them. Yeah. So OSBrick eventually added in some guides for querying paths, and that kind of exposes connector disk dead by path or whatever the connector uses for its LUN information. Maybe not even LUNs, but just any volume path information. So basically, during live migration testing, when you do attaches and detaches periodically, a volume path would be left behind. Say like when you go from the master off to a slave node. And so we kept noticing this issue, and we wanted to reproduce it because sometimes it's really intermittent. So this tool lets you easily automate tracking of what volume paths exist and what all volume paths exist on a system. That you can use that to compare. Say like, I transferred this volume off or I detached it. Are those volume paths still on the system compared to what I snapshotted before with the query all LUNs API? Yeah, it's very useful for say like if you're trying to test something 1,000 times, it's very annoying to do 1,000 live migrations back and forth just to reproduce something. And it could eventually.
And to be clear, that the reason why we were doing this at the time is that there were bugs in live migration that were actually leaving volume paths behind, and we were trying to find out where it was coming from and what the conditions are that were leading to that. So this tool that he wrote kind of helped us along with that process. So.
Is this something that could be used in a functional test?
Yes, that's kind of the. Sorry, Anthony. Go ahead. But
yeah, it's kind of like the end goal, be like having in some type of gate check where it could verify that, say, a change to live migration in Nova happens, or even Cinder or OSBrick, that doesn't end up breaking. Say like live migration, it doesn't make it end up leaving behind volume paths for connectors, because currently it's not even tested. So something could break live migration and no one will know until manual testing occurs and we notice, oh, this volume path is staying around after we transfer the volume off, or we're detaching this volume, why is the volume path still there afterward?
Yeah. But the tool itself and the code that you wrote isn't specifically for testing live migration, right?
No, it's more general. It's just a kind of a wrapper for OSBrick's connector API calls. I don't know if I could put that on the other pad. It was in one of the patches I linked to it. It was one that Walt made a while ago. It exposes some APIs, and then this tool makes it easier to call because it's a little setup.
So this could be used in just normal attach and detach flows as well.
Anything involving attaching and detaching, this type of tool could be useful.
Yep.
It's really just checking the volume path information. It doesn't care how with like live migration or there's other cases besides attach and detach in Nova. But it's general so that it can be used in any type of checking for that.
So where should it live? Is that?
Yeah, the main thing was it's kind of like where should a tool like this actually live? It's almost like for its testing purposes or verification. So that's why I have multiple patches in OSBrick and then the extension library, seeing if we can get feedback on which one is better. Maybe neither is good. Maybe it should go in Nova API directly, even though that's more time-consuming.
Yeah. So part of the reasons why we started looking at moving it into the extension model that Ivan was working on was that it actually requires the Cinder client, and we didn't want to make a circular dependency of brick requiring Cinder, which requires brick, because I don't think it really belongs there. But at the time when we originally put the patch up, we had nowhere else to put it. So then we started brainstorming and thinking, well, if we're going to add extensions to Cinder client, then maybe this is a spot we could put it. I don't know. I don't have any strong feelings about it, but anyway.
So extensions are going in.
Yeah. That seems like a good place to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Expansion because do we want to place for the CLI or any grid code?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, in case we need to search stuff, they also do like for free.
Yeah.
Extension, something else.
Right. Yeah, I didn't really like that idea.
You can implement this.
Right. Right.
Or like those for extensions or all the structure for unit test, functional test.
Yeah.
Functional test are not yet, but the process much for it.
Okay.
So, John, I think on one of these you had some of the biggest questions on the cache. Wasn't it at some point?
I think it was
Flask, right?
Yeah, that was okay. So
it was a while ago.
That was a while ago, and that was on the patch that we put into Brick itself,
okay,
which has the dependency on Cinder, and even before that is when we had a Flask service inside of it that people could call remotely. It was a hack, basically, just to allow some way to remotely get that info, and all that stuff is gone. It doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, that was more the proof of concept version. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of just thrown out there to get feedback and whatnot. Kind of like what we're doing with the extension things too. Is that it is useful. People can use it to help test and verify things. It's not very big. It's really small, but we just don't know where it really lives, what the right place for it is.
Cinder client extension.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably really close to best fit.
That sounds good to me. You all right with that, Anthony?
It's hard to hear. Besides,
So
you won't.
Am I really that loud?
It's healthy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think at this point we should probably abandon the brick patch and go with the extension.
Okay. Yeah. It does seem like a little better place for an extension. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I think too.
All right.
Okay. Cool.
Thanks. Helps decide where to put it now.
Thank you. See the replication guy tomorrow?
No.
Oh.
That's Alex.
No, that's Alex, and he's on the line. And what time do you want him there? He can be there as early as 6 a.m., which would be 9 a.m. our time.
So,
10? Yeah. Let's all come in early. Yeah, make it 4 a.m.
No, well, as it is right now, the agenda for tomorrow, I've got the follow-up on the scalable backup service, and then
Cinder without Nova.
Cinder without Nova. So that probably
could be more like 10 a.m. our time.
10 a.m. So 7 a.m. Okay, perfect. He'll be there then.
Maybe, or maybe later.
Yeah. No earlier than 7 a.m. for him.
Yeah.
10 a.m. our time. Okay.
Philosophy.
on toxic philosophy.
The only reason I brought that up is that's what we always talk about over beers. So we can either go drink the beers and have the usual conversations, but when you drink the beers and have those conversations, then nothing ever happens. So which is better? Or should we bring the beers in here so that we can take notes?
Here too, right?
Or
everyone take a shot.
All right.
So I just brought this up kind of for that reason, because all the side conversations that kind of pop up about things like we have these bug lists, but we never do anything about them, or how we do prioritization reviews isn't working. I guess I think about these things, and when I bug other people about them, they respond. I figured it might be something to do at the end of the day when nobody wants to talk technical talk, or just go drink beer and talk about it and do nothing. But that's kind of that's kind of what prompted it is. Maybe some of it is just a result of the fact that there's not enough people working on Cinder to do more bug fixing or triaging, or that's our velocity is what it is because we're all at our limit. And that's the way it is. But I just see things in Nova. They have a bug czar. They have somebody who's deals with bugs.
Well, the bug question, I think, is an interesting one because looking at that, I've been trying to just bring up the numbers in the weekly meetings just to keep some awareness there. But has anyone seen other projects that have done anything for managing bugs that have worked well? Are we good with the way we're handling bugs now? Are there any better suggestions? I really have no idea what would work better.
What does the bug czar actually do other than
he kind of goes through what's not triaged, points it out to people. In Nova, I don't know if we're big enough to have this, but they certainly have some projects, so they can say, well, here's some Nova volume bugs. So if people are interested in volumes, Scott met with them involved. Maybe you guys can have a look. Or they have some teams for everything. Lindbergh team, here's some bugs. You guys got to look at this. We don't know what to do with the bug.
So it's been sitting here for 6
stuff
months
like
and no
that.
one's looked
And
at it.
maybe a bug czar would go through and say, we're clearly not. Look, here's 100 bugs that are 3 years old. Let's just get rid of them. I mean, just something. Yeah.
So
just. And I think it should be the PTL because that's part of the problem is the PTL sort of has this umbrella of everything to do. It's impossible. It seems like a good way if there were people who had time, especially people who want to get more involved. It's a good way to do something like that.
Well, as far as sorting through the somewhat informal tag system seems to be pretty useful.
Yeah.
And I try to use that. I know a few other people do. We can at least categorize things as certain drivers or API related, quota related, backup related.
But you certainly do a lot of that.
Yeah, because I read through very number of bugs.
That's it. Here's the bugs are.
Yeah. Well. Well, another thought might be, every once in a while someone will say, should we have a bug day? We did one a year ago, and should we do another one? If you do it once a year, that's not a whole lot. It should be once a month, the first Friday of the month. If nobody shows up, fine. But if people schedule such a thing, you can get a lot of work done if you get 3 or 5 people together.
Well, there's a lot of bugs in there that there's no problem with. There's a lot anyway. There's not really one.
I don't know.
I mean, that's how.
It's obviously not this horrible problem that's bothering if we don't have managers saying get the bug list down. But the bug list doesn't get down unless somebody like Eric or somebody like Sean is motivated and somebody goes through.
Well, I did recently close some bugs that were like really
yeah.
But other than that, I'm not sure the current state is really that bad. It may be more that we just have more organized. Because I can just do it here and there when I feel like it.
I guess that's the question: is that good enough, or should we do some more organized method? If so, what is it? reduce the number of bugs. Cool. But maybe not an issue. Personally, I've gotten in my own world 100-something bugs assigned to me that are probably not really things, and I don't review some, and everybody else may be the same. And that's maybe the same state, and that's just the world.
510 right now.
Yeah. So okay.
That's
just one thing that popped up.
510.
Yeah.
No, it's over 1,000, I think.
Yeah.
And they are 4 or 5 times bigger than it.
Ironic has 273.
Yeah,
And we have some projects with
We're not that bad. Every once in a while, when I pull it up, I notice, here's just looking at the high priority bugs. There's like half of them are 2 or 3 years old. What does that even mean?
It means we're not fixing
It means we're not going to fix them. So that's one thing. Instead of cluttering up and things, should we just say, look, if it's a year old, just get rid of them all and refile it.
Sean was doing stuff like that for a while.
Yeah.
I closed a lot of them that were older. The one thing I think is if we actually got it down to something meaningful, the bug list could be a useful tool, but as it is right now, there's just so much out there. If someone's coming looking for something to work on, it almost scares them off, I think, pulling up that list and just seeing this huge.
Do we have an ability to, if we look at the ones that have been triaged, is it the whole list or is it pretty much just?
That is something that I wanted to raise, actually. So we do have 2 problems in my opinion that we should try and figure out how to address. One is a ton of bugs that don't have enough information, and we're not that harsh in terms of just marking it valid. The other thing is I've noticed a lot of people go in and update the bug to triage. They don't add any information or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, what was the triage? Because I'm looking at it and I have no idea what the problem is. And triage usually indicates that at least give somebody a hint on how they can go and fix it. And to go back to Eric's point, I think that's one of the most important things for people that are looking to get involved and want to help fix a bug. That's the most important question.
I've also been closing some, probably truthfully, as invalid or whatever Launchpad calls it, where people keep writing bugs for things that, if it's something that when I'm reading, like, the release notes, data release, that I don't really want to read about in there, then I'll usually say this is not really a bug.
Yeah, we still get bugs. There's a typo in this comment.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
So I've been closing a number of those because it's just not, if someone had to read that whole list later, did the release, like I do, I'm trying to tell our documentation team what was fixed and stuff.
So you actually go through every bug that was closed in the last cycle and summarize
We kind of have to do that too. Like what's new? What's important?
Comments are fixed.
Yeah.
A was changed to and all.
Well, it goes back to that's the thing. One release it goes from apostrophe yes to S. And the next release somebody comes back and changes them all back to apostrophe yes.
I like the one where your pronunciation of SQL.
Right.
Yeah.
And
These are the important problems that we solve.
Get background checks into bug entry.
I don't know. I'll see if I can come up with some kind of plan to take my pathway of what I've been doing and turn it into something that's more organized. I'm not sure what that would look like. Something I could be doing because I find a lot of value in reading over a lot of that stuff because I want to find out which ones I need to track down and worry about back.
Some old bugs might be worth keeping as a, there may be still problems that we know of. I mean, if it's a high priority bug, it at one time meant something, but, there's 6 of them or 8 of them that are a year or 2 old and another half dozen that are 300 plus days old. Obviously, reason nobody's working on it. I don't know.
I kind of wonder, just as an outside observer looking in, if you could split by driver into separate projects.
Well, we kind of do that with the tags.
So we have a tile system, which is useful, but probably not everybody goes into this.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the list, it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
To see 80 new undecided bugs on the first page. Or, no, sorry, 60 or so. I'm just looking at one page.
I think it might be useful if anyone's interested in it, at least having someone go through and add tags. If it's a driver, making sure that driver tag is applied to it. If it's a Dell issue, to get a Dell tag on there. Just to kind of categorize some of them. And then prioritizing. If we have an idea of, yeah, this is an issue, but not a big one, at least getting some priority on there so it isn't just this long list of undecided.
Well, I've also been marking a lot of them as low risk list because they are something that's pretty fixed, but it's not fairly impressive.
Is it tag driver or drivers?
Driver.
That's the one I always had.
Drivers. Okay, that's the top one on the tab. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the tag list on the right.
But I'm pretty sure I've seen both.
Yeah.
Yeah, both are in the list.
Midcycle-cinder, which
Yeah. Well, you can have cross-project bugs, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe even a regular scheduled, bug scrub session.
Yeah, I'd be up to,
Pick a frequency once a month on Friday afternoon or sometime when
first Friday of every month, we just
pile it on IRC or something and just say, this. Everybody look at it. What do you think? Boom. Just do something with it. Start at the top, so you're obviously looking at the high priority stuff. There's stuff with no tags. There's stuff that, like I said, years old.
Every time we have extra minutes in a weekly meeting.
Quickly, let's go through 300 bugs.
Well, the Launchpad interface is horrible. It would be nice just to pick, okay, what were the new bugs that came in during the last week, and then we could do a quick review of that. So I did write some scripts to pull that out and make it a little easier to sort and filter and things. So we could do something like that. We could post up a list of the new bugs and I'll quickly go through it.
Every once in a while, I feel like, okay, I got time. Maybe I'll fix a bug, and then I spend so much time figuring out what bug to fix, and then I run out of time to fix it.
Yeah.
Just a thought. So here's another new thought. We were discussing like Nova. Student specs are open now.
Oh yeah.
So that gives them some lead time, and I mean, is our scheduling of all these milestone and spec things good? It seems like the release cycle puts these boundaries on us that ends up making some things very hard.
Some things for.
You get your spec in the first of, the little release opens, and then you can kind of first talk about it at the summit, and then at the mid-cycle you start talking about the code and the high priority thing you're working on, and then we've only got,
I think there's a benefit to opening specs early, in that we can improve the obviously fine specs, and then people hopefully won't try and talk about it at the summit.
Right, that's kind of the...
We've got fewer summits for later, we've suddenly explained what they want to do, and we go, yeah, do that. And we still do that.
Yeah. And that's not really necessary, but maybe...
No, we talk about
Well, I haven't thought about that.
How am I going to get to all these far off exotic destinations?
Well, we can talk about the code we've written because the spec is approved.
If we talk about them, where we don't approve specs. There you go, yeah. There's plenty of specs that are augmented. I can get the obviously.
Yeah. That would be good.
That'd be great. It feels so good when we walk in and find this thing.
Yeah.
Those rare things that we can all agree.
And then just explore.
So I think it would be good. I'd rather have people thinking of specs now for the next release rather than waiting until the
there's nothing preventing someone submitting a patch against the next release while the current one is ongoing.
So you have to kind of, people have to look at them too, I think.
Well, I think one thing that people know is whether someone wants to move the
Yeah.
It's nice to throw already there and you're like, oh.
I think someone in Nova creates a directory that has proposals and accepted and
more complex.
they have a more complex tree for their specs and where they go. And
Back to the, I think there's, I'm probably not going to land the spec there, I'm just not correct.
Yeah, you
create.
the review itself has to create the directory.
But yeah, I could. Yeah. That's kind of signal.
Yeah.
I have a question about specs. Do we have any kind of theory of how we wrote a spec and then implemented something a little different and now the spec is very confusing by people?
You should submit an update patch against the original. I think that's what Nova does.
Yeah, we've done it a couple times, but I don't know if that's really been.
That's something that you noticed at all.
Yeah.
But we could say that before you get the code that includes a scan of the spec, and obviously not going to go correct. I mean, be very clear that I mean, nitpicks or spelling errors that weren't noticed the first time. If there's something really significant changed in the way you're going, then the spec will be updated.
Because documentation people come to me and say, well, where is this thing that this spec's talking about? Well, that's
yeah.
We've
had a few of
I'm
those.
not talking about micro. Just major.
Well, things change when you write the code.
When we decided, we're not doing the path, it's obvious the path is bad. We've got to change the spec. We've got a different way of doing it. So one other spec should be changed to the site. One other consideration that I kind of try to do that I think might work better. So I don't like specs.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't like the idea of going back to update. That's not correct. But what I do like is the idea of when you do import a feature that's based on a spec, you add the information to documentation on the source. I think that's more important. I think if we do a habit of doing that, that's where the documentation folks go.
Well, and that's why people look at stuff, because that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's just people don't have that for a lot of them. Maybe they should. You do for Rep HD2, and that's been adjusted. Right. But so my point is, like asking the question makes sense. It's better to enforce something like that as opposed to doing reviews that and enforcing going back and updating the spec. Yeah, I think it should be fine.
The other nice benefit of that is then the dev draft or the docs source is getting the patch that you're posting.
Yeah, that's the main advantage.
So people can review it at the same time they're reviewing the code. They can say, well, you changed this, you should go change that.
What is the expectation? I just honestly don't know. What is the expectation about docs? Right now we don't have them at all. So we would potentially have a lot more. That might be.
It gives a chance for more minus ones when you don't have it.
And when you have typos.
Oh, yeah. Typos in the
That's
exactly right.
Up to review. But I like it. Kind of, being the doctor.
Anybody not like it? Anybody be bummed when you get dinged on your review for not putting it there?
I would prefer to have it on another patch instead.
I think it's better in that patch because then you can review the doc with the patch. If it's in another patch, then you kind of forget about it and it doesn't get done.
But we have a problem with some reviews being so big that they're hard to review. So so with the dev refs, it will be even harder.
I think the dev ref makes it easier because if you look at the
Okay,
API micro version, patch that I probably stole the dev ref from someone else. So I didn't write a copy of dev ref. I'm not going to make it out like I did a bunch of work. But if you read that, it tells you what, it helps you understand the code. And so it helps you to review the code.
Or take like the kind of documentation that documents discussed.
I get it.
It's actually, I would rather see that in the dev ref than the spec. And in some sense, it changes the, at least for me, it changes the idea of the expectation of the initial spec. The way we do it now is a little waterfall. You know, I mean, we go through a lot of iterations sometimes on the spec, aiming for the final story. And then, and there's a lot of contention about the final story, even if that's basically people agree we ought to be working on it.
Right.
You could get working on something potentially earlier. We all agree that we should be doing something with version objects, even though we don't fully know the whole story yet. We're going to learn as we go along. And we can update the doc as we go along.
Absolutely, because the spec process, I think, is painful. It's just going to take forever to get the spec merged. And it's because we're being waterfall. And we want everything figured out in the spec.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
I think years ago I reminded someone of you for a spelling error on the spec. I'll never do that again.
And I'll never forget it.
No, but I mean, that kind of thing is not productive.
Well, it's not productive, but it's pain. It makes the process suck. It just gets so exhausted if you've got 40 pages of your spec. Even if it's some of it's pretty good analysis, verification, but is it stuff that if it were in a dev ref, you could kind of just say spec, you know, something pretty high level, good enough, you know, approve the spec, and then things can get done in the patch, including the doc, including the dev ref.
And I think usually we're all in agreement on the direction. It's, yeah, figuring out all those fine details.
I mean, we could get some stats if you look at the specs for sort of the high priority stuff.
Replication D2.
How many weeks to take to merge the spec? And that's weeks off the time we work on the code, we review the code, and I think we have a pretty slow velocity, at least currently. If you look at our 3 or 4 priority things, they're still not done. And if you look at how much time we spent in Mitaka on the spec, it's probably 50% of the time. So it might help us get things done faster in a way that's less of the unpleasant parts of our job and more of the pleasant part. We want to write the code, right? We want to make stuff work, not bog down designs arguments that can be important, but if we can get high-level stuff done in the spec and then into
That's fine as long as people have that. Sometimes you write code and then you're being just the whole thing.
That's fine, but that happens right now. You write the spec, you argue over the whole spec, we make it all perfect in our waterfall way, and then you go write the code, and it's like, that's not going to work. And so then you still end up rewriting the code.
And I'm saying
your whole
do it fine. Do it again.
It's
Someone did it.
glad you pointed out, Tom, but it's waterfall is what it's evolved to be for us. And it's not agile. Which, so everybody's too tired to dissent, or what? What does it mean? I mean, does it mean it as a group or culturally we'll agree to maybe when we review specs to kind of not see it as gospel and not worry so much about it, and we can get things going faster? Well, but this is a step towards abolishment, so baby steps, John. If we get to the point where there's value maybe in fleshing things out and saying, is there an API change? Is there a security impact? Or maybe maybe a lot of maybe a lot of the spec stuff should be in the dev ref, but then we can iterate more. And the initial process is just to say, this is something we want, let's do it. And then as you work on your code, you work on the dev ref, and it all ends up being there. And you can say, -1, this has a security impact. I don't know what, but just something is more agile.
I don't think it should be cast as
depending on low power for getting the spec, be perfectly good responsibly. I don't know what you're proving. I don't see any use cases. We shouldn't be doing this. That should be an early stage review from our.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, this isn't a proposal that everybody gets in.
The other thing though, don't like to protect your base, right down here.
Personally, I don't, but you know,
I don't think anybody can do that because
it's even easier to review the spec when you see
it's
the
easier to
code.
review the spec, you see the code, but then again, you know, I had to get my first spec and the code up both at the same time, but nobody's seen the code yet, so it's not like people really looked at the code to review the spec. People went in the spec and said, I don't understand this, and what, you know, how could this be used? There's a lot of confusion, and I think that happens a lot in specs. Everybody wants to fully understand everything in the spec, and you're going to fully understand it when you read the code. So it doesn't mean specs are bad. It just means spending half of our cycle getting the spec approved takes up so much time that.
I'm saying spec approval is meaningless. With other specs approval, we're not like the code. We don't have to wait for the spec to be approved. We can merge the code into code if we like. I mean, we'll retrospectively approve the spec. So
Pragmatically, if we just look at this cycle, there's three or four high priority things, and it's taken so long to get the spec merged that now we're looking at the code, and now we're saying at the mid-cycle, what's going to take the code merged, get the code merged, and we're running out of time.
yeah, but some of those high-profile things are damn difficult. Like reviewing those is damn hard.
Well, that's the benefit of the spec process when you use a really complicated stuff, is you try to shake out a lot of the problems before, right?
Maybe.
But I'm not sure that a lot of people really want to use it. It doesn't make that capacity.
Maybe it's your mind on
for a lot of things. You don't need specs and non-contentious. You know, put the code in, and then if somebody wants a spec, let them all use the spec. See if perhaps they put up, but it would never become a lot of things otherwise it doesn't need to be on this spec.
That's true. I think that some things would just be better with the along with the code. They don't necessarily need a spec. But there are times where the spec is useful because even having the code, sometimes it's not clear. It's useful looking at the spec and then realizing, oh, that's what they're trying to do here.
I'm not arguing to get rid of specs.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's a better way to do it.
It seems like our spec list has become larger and larger, and there's a backlog there, and we're getting stuff pushed through.
Yeah,
I have several specs that the code is already landed, and the spec is still sitting there waiting to come through. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
You go back and fix those before I reword all your patches.
No, that's true.
There's more people than specs.
I know, it's something I've raised before too.
That's an issue. I think that is a problem. Just reviews and approvals. The specs sit out there. A lot of them don't get looked at. So I think we just need to be better at reviewing them, and once we get reviews, getting better at actually improving them.
Well, I don't think it's generally understood that there's things required specs. So, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of times today that, a lot of stuff people like the specs where they're not really use specs.
Every time we get together, we have that conversation.
Okay.
Pretty much.
But we always have the same answer.
Yeah. Have you seen the list?
I mean, I've been around here a little while. I guess I thought I probably am guilty of thinking that specs are expected. Stuff that maybe that's not. Or they can't really help you do it. No, I'm not asking for help. I'm just giving you an example. You know, I'm getting it clear for
No, but you didn't, what I'm saying is you didn't understand. You just said, I possibly misunderstand and expect specs on things that maybe I shouldn't.
Well, I'm just suggesting that other people may be like, yeah, and they're
So what
we're missing to this fact.
Well, my advice is you put the code in, wait for the question.
No, I heard you. I'm getting this advice.
The other thing that we said in the past is new features that touch the core code and are far-reaching, like more than 20 lines of code. You should probably respect. if you're going to go and you're going to fix an if statement in your driver, or you're going to add capabilities, reporting capabilities or whatever, go to the spec. People have done the spec.
We do have.
No, I didn't think you were.
We do have a. I think after Fort Collins, we added a section on the wiki how to contribute a new feature. There is when do I need a blueprint and spec? When do I just need a blueprint? I should probably review this and make sure this is still accurate. But
yeah, I think there are things on the borderline. You know, sometimes you have to do a small enhancement. Sometimes it's just treated like a bug fix. Sometimes it's just submit.
That's why we have IRC. Come in and ask us, talk. I mean, that's whatever.
You can track some of that stuff as just those bugs that I just people reporting that.
Whatever.
So one thing I'm surprised with is that in Liberty we had 37 specs merged, and now we have only 9.
I wonder how many of the Liberty specs turned into
Not much.
merged.
Not much, but still.
I don't know what that means, but it should mean something.
Yeah. I hope someone would explain to me.
Does that mean we merged a bunch of stuff that there's no chance of?
Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. I don't know.
Maybe Liberty was an example of people writing too many specs and they didn't need to, and they just did. Nine specs doesn't seem like a huge amount for
But we have a lot of leftovers from the previous ones.
But on the other hand, if you go look in GitHub at the stuff that was submitted, and I'd argue, you know what, in terms of like big changing the code, so there was only 6 or 7.
So we had just too many specs, or it was unrealistic how many specs were merged, perhaps.
I don't really know what to make of the line.
yeah, it's kind of subjective.
I don't really know which one's over.
Yeah.
There's a few in there that were special approved. I think we're starting to see more features.
Seems to be more growing now.
So if we look at Liberty, for example, right? So easy driver updates. Medication, add your medication spec, break the guys for the transport support. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in there. Probably.
Yeah. API changes.
There's a spec in that was merged in Liberty for adding an STS controller driver.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Huawei.
Oh, I thought that.
That's Huawei's own driver.
Cinder volume driver for Huawei SDS hypervisor is a storage virtualization solution for reuse of customers' existing old and modern.
Did they take it out or something? They were kind of merged at one point. you
I think we pulled the first year. I think we pulled it this year.
No. Yeah, that could
I
be.
don't know the status now. Remember we had
Yeah,
something.
I know Mike had removed something from theirs that, because there was no CI against it.
So, Mike wrote it.
Oh, really?
Tom +1 did, and Mike +2. Cool.
It's awesome. I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
I think
Never
it's
said that.
they're saying it's different from the license, so that's why this one is
I hear it's like SUC.
That's the other thing, man.
Yeah, that's the first thing that needs to stand up to.
I have no objection.
-2 for port commit message.
Oh, that. See, that's the thing I hate about updating moving things around. Screws up my system.
So that was a killer before we figured all this out. Yeah, it seems like there's not that many Mitaka specs. It doesn't seem like people have been putting specs in there for no reason.
You can merge them code willy-nilly instead.
Merge everything that's left over.
Just merge it now.
You get a chance to -2 between Tuesday and Thursday. On Friday, everything goes down.
You get a +2. You get Sean just hit me every day.
Time to go home. Yeah, they're philosophical.
Sorry to keep people from the beers.
Oh, yeah. Another year.
Start passing around the bottle.
I don't know, it seems like there's some point in the midcycler summit where we should have some kind of discussion of how things have been going and what we can do to make them better.
So I'm trying to, don't have our thinking session showing us latest film.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I missed that.
Tools and dim plugins.
I think that torch was passed to the people.
Show us your tools.
Well, he had them out yesterday.
Are we done?
Sounds like it.
I think that calls his broadcast.
You don't like talking about nonsense.
I didn't know he had them out yesterday.
In the morning.
Yep.
All right, we'll finish our.
Can you take a snapshot and leave it up?
Yeah.
End the broadcast right there.